In 2020, an Indigenous woman named Joyce Echaquan live-streamed hospital staff mocking her as she lay dying in a Quebec hospital. Nurses assumed she was drug-seeking instead of treating her urgent condition. A later inquiry concluded that Joyce would probably be alive today if she were white. This tragic case jolted many into recognizing undeniable racism in our healthcare system. If we only recognize racism when it shouts, we miss the many times it whispers. Today we'll discuss how to spot those signs, and more importantly, how to respond, so we're not waiting for a tragedy to tell us that something is wrong. First, let's examine this module's three-stage journey. We will begin by reframing our perspective of racism from overt personal prejudices to systemic structures and policies. Dr. Camara Jones provided 4 allegories to understand racism, and Dr. Ibram X. Kendi reminds us not racist isn't a neutral stance. We must actively be anti-racist. Next, we'll look at everyday bias that shows up as microaggressions and learn how we can shift from silence to action, becoming upstanders who support one another. Finally, we'll tie this directly to our own work. How can we embed anti-racism into research, partnerships, and policies so that what we learn today leads to real change tomorrow? That's our journey for the next few minutes. Dr. Camara Jones uses the image of moths appearing as different colors of Japanese lanterns to show that race is an illusion, a construct created by society, not a biological reality. Genetically, any two individuals are overwhelmingly similar, no matter what racial categories we put them in. If we understand that race is created by people, we understand that racism, treating people differently based on that perceived race, is also created by people and can be dismantled by people. Racism is not just a few bad apples using slurs or acting with prejudice. Racism is built into our systems, unfairly disadvantaging some and conversely giving unfair advantage to others. By seeing racism as a system of power, we shift away from the idea that it's just about bad people. Instead, we ask how our structures, like healthcare, education, data systems, might be set up in ways that produce inequitable outcomes. Racism wastes human potential, weakening the collective strength of society as a whole. But first, we have to be able to see it, which brings us to a powerful allegory about perspective. Imagine you're in a restaurant with friends. You look up and see a sign on the door that reads, "Open." Now picture someone standing outside that same door. From their side, the sign reads, "Closed." They can't enter. This restaurant saga shows a dual reality that Dr. Jones calls a metaphor for privilege. When you're on the inside of a system, you see an open sign. Things seem welcoming and normal. You might not even realize there's a flip side. Those on the outside, however, encounter invisible barriers that insiders may never notice. This allegory delivers some call to action. Once we become aware that the sign exists, we can't remain complacent. We can't go back to pretending everyone has the same experience. Recognizing one's own insider status in certain systems is uncomfortable, but it's the first step in taking down that barrier, or at least holding the door open for others. To illustrate how racism operates, Dr. Camara Jones offers the gardener's tale allegory. A gardener plants red seeds in rich soil and pink seeds in rocky soil. Preferring red, she nurtures those flowers more. Over time, red flowers flourish, while pink ones struggle, reinforcing her belief that red is superior. This story highlights 3 levels of racism: institutionalized, structural racism, the quality of the soil, initial conditions, and access to resources. In real life, segregated neighborhoods, underfunded schools, healthcare deserts. Personally mediated racism, the gardener's actions favoring one box over another, like a doctor, teacher, or employer treating people unequally due to bias. Internalized racism, what happens within the flowers themselves. Pink flowers may believe red is better. Similarly, oppressed groups may internalize negative beliefs about their worth. The lesson? It's not enough to rescue disadvantaged flowers later. We must change the soil, structures, resources, policies, and the gardener's values, beliefs of superiority, which both influence how the flowers see themselves. Otherwise, inequity persists. At this point, you may think, I get it, racism is bad, I am not racist. But as Ibramex Kendi explains, not racist isn't a real category. We're either racist or anti-racist in any given moment. There is no neutral ground. Why? Because racism is built into the status quo. If we do nothing, we're still supporting it. Saying, I'm not racist, often just means I don't intend harm, but it requires no action to change inequity. Think of racism as a moving walkway at the airport. Walk along or stand still, and you still move in the same direction as racist outcomes. Only by turning and walking against it do you make progress. Being anti-racist means conscious, continuous effort, calling out bias, advocating for policy change, educating ourselves. It's tiring at times, but necessary to move toward equity. Like land acknowledgements, words are only a start. Real change requires ongoing action. Not all racism is overt. In professional and everyday settings, it often appears as microaggressions. These seemingly minor comments or actions can carry harmful assumptions. A colleague may say, "You're so articulate," to a First Nations researcher, mispronounce an Indigenous name repeatedly, or question a brown-skinned doctor's credentials. Dr. Kira Banks notes we've gotten better at naming microaggressions. Now we must act. The IQEE tool offers a simple way to respond. Interrupt. Gently, but firmly stop the trajectory. For example, "Excuse me, can we pause for a second? I want to clarify what I think I heard." Question. Probe the remark or assumption. "What did you mean by that?" Educate. Offer a new perspective without lecturing. Echo. If someone else speaks up, support them. "Thank you for saying something. I agree," for instance. These moments can become learning opportunities rather than a source of harm. And when we misstep, anti-racism means listening, owning the impact, and choosing growth over defensiveness. We've talked about concepts and personal actions. Now let's turn to systems change in our organizations and data work. Anti-racism must live in policies and practices, not just posters. This means equitable hiring and advancement, regular IDEA and anti-racism training, clear protocols for addressing discrimination, and transparent progress tracking. Leadership plays a critical role, like ensuring underrepresented staff have equitable opportunities and rewarding equity-focused contributions. For those working with administrative data, anti-racism means using race-based and ethnicity data responsibly. Done right, it can highlight inequities and direct resources where needed. Done poorly, and it can reproduce bias. The AISP Toolkit reminds us to embed equity checks at every stage of the data cycle, and to partner with communities, especially Indigenous ones, guided by principles like OCAP. In short, redesigning both people systems and technical systems to truly invite everyone in. As we close, remember this isn't the end of the conversation. It's one step in an ongoing journey. We've learned that racism is systemic, that not racist isn't enough, and that everyday actions and organizational change are both essential. Dr. Camara Jones calls us to 3 tasks: name it, frame it, change it. Name racism when you see it. Frame it by asking, how is racism operating here? Change it by acting. Whether that's speaking up in a meeting, revising a policy, or partnering differently on data. Small steps add up. Our group's feedback was clear. We need deeper discussions and tangible examples. Let's hold ourselves and each other accountable. Anti-racism is not the destination, but a continual practice. One that's messy, humbling, and profoundly important. Together we can rebuild systems so every door is open to everyone.